Hello friends, grace and peace be with you today. I pray you are doing well and you are, through this holiday season, you are finding times to connect with your Lord and still using your days to really be a disciple and be a follower of Christ. So where we left off, we were reading Ezekiel chapter 7. And that was talking about, it was the end of the coming judgment, right? It was the pronouncement of the destruction that would be coming and how it would happen. Now with chapter 8, you'll see that we skip ahead in time and we'll see the why. Yes, we've alluded to the why of this judgment, the why this doom is happening, and it's ultimately Israel's sin, but you'll see how we'll go more in depth. So starting off in verse 1, in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day, while I was sitting in my house, and the elders of Judah were sitting before me, the hand of the sovereign Lord came upon me there. I looked, and I saw a figure like that of a man. From what appeared to be his waist down, he was like fire, and from there up his appearance was as bright as a glowing metal. He stretched out what would look like a hand and took me by the hair of my head. The Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and in visions of God he took me to Jerusalem, to the entrance to the north gate of the inner court, where the idol that provokes to jealousy stood. And there before me was the glory of the God of Israel, as in the vision I had seen in plain. So here is Ezekiel having his second vision, and it says the 6th year in the 6th month on the 5th day. So we look back to chapter 1 and we discover just how long it has been. So verse 2 of the first chapter, really, we see it says, on the 5th of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin. So, going back to chapter 8, where it says the 6th year, is referring to the 6th year of Jehoiachin's capturing. So, we understand this vision to take place in the years 592 BC. And really, the coming chapters are all going to be in, it's a message to the leaders of Israel, the leaders of Jerusalem, really. And it's this pronouncement of, look, God saying, look what you have done. In the following verses, you'll see the Spirit will take him and show Ezekiel just all the detestable ways that Israel has been living. And so he sees this figure like that of a man, burning like fire from waist down. His appearance was bright as glowing metal. So it's just this overwhelming bright light, essentially. I've taken a single blacksmithing course, and when something gets that hot, that bright, it can be hard to look at. Those of you that are welders know that. But so just imagine that witnessing a man glowing like metal. That unreal. It's just unreal, right? So let's start back in verse 5. Then he said to me, Son of man, look toward the north. So I looked, and in the entrance north of the gate of the altar, I saw this idol of jealousy. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The utterly detestable things the house of Israel is doing here, things that will drive me far from my sanctuary. But you will see things that are even more detestable. Then he brought me to the entrance to the court. I looked and I saw a hole in the wall. He said to me, Son of man, now dig into the wall. So I dug into the wall and saw a doorway there. And he said to me, Go in and see the wicked and detestable things they are doing here. So I went in and looked, and I saw portrayed all over the walls all kinds of crawling things and detestable animals, and all the idols of the house of Israel. In front of them stood 70 elders of the house of Israel, and Jazaniah, son of Shaphan, was standing among them. Each had a censer in his hand, and a fragrant cloud of incense was rising. So he's taken to really see the internal practices that are happening in Israel. The practices of pagan gods. From history, it's likely that these are all in references to Egyptian gods with the hieroglyphs and the writing on the wall where it says all the creeping or crawling creatures and all that. But it's these are again detestable practices according to the Lord. They are turning away from the Lord. They're turning away from what they know, and it's kind of funny that now if it is Egyptian practices, that the irony of them turning back to the Israelites' original captors, right? According to Ellicott's commentary, when we see the language talking about seeing 70 elders, it is believed that this is actually in reference to Moses, and we get from Exodus chapter 24, verse 9. Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire, as clear as the sky itself. So again, it's hearkening back to, here's the 70 that were set aside for Moses, and it's in contrast to the 70 that are doing the detestable practices, right? And again, this is a vision that Ezekiel is having, not a real, wasn't a real thing that he was seeing. It was a vision and wasn't a physical thing. Starting back in with verse 12, he said to me, "Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the darkness? Each at the shrine of his own idol, they say, 'The Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land.' Again, he said, 'You will see them doing things that are even more detestable.' Then he brought me to the entrance to the north gate of the house of the Lord, and I saw women sitting there mourning for Tammuz. He said to me, 'Do you see this, son of man? You will see things that are even more detestable.'" So I find it interesting here where we see this language of the elders of Israel calling out that God's not helping us, He's not saving us. All while He's saying, look, they're doing these detestable practices. Only if they were righteous individuals, if they were holy men, there would maybe be a different story here. But God's judgment is that He has to bring justice to the world. He has to bring peace. And sometimes that peace is through destruction. And when we see the reference to Tammuz, it would be a Babylonian god of the spring, I believe. And so there would be, so he's referencing the women mourning for him because there was a belief that as the year went on and all the vegetation died, as winter comes and all that, they believed that Tammuz would go to the underworld, and then as spring came, they would celebrate his return. So again, he's looking to those things like they're practicing Egyptian gods, they're worshiping Babylonian gods, all these things. The women that are mourning for the death of Tammuz, right? He says, "Do you see this? Do you see this, son of man?" And it's like, and he continues on. You'll see even more detestable things. If that wasn't enough, there's going to be more. Verse 16. He then brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and there at the entrance to the temple between the portico and the altar were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord and their faces toward the east. They were bowing down to the sun in the east. He said to me, "Have you seen this, Son of man? Is it a trivial matter for the house of Judah to do the detestable things they are doing here? Must they also fill the land with violence and continually provoke me to anger? Look at them, putting the branch to their nose. Therefore I will deal with them in anger. I will not look on to them with pity or spare them. Although they shout in my ears, I will not listen to them." So, again, he's shown more acts of idol worship, really. Pagan worship. He says he turns their backs on the altar. The clear, doesn't get more clear of a symbol, right? Turning their backs on the Lord and turning to the east, towards the worship of the Eastern pagan gods, right? And so we see all of this taking place, and it's a message not only for Ezekiel, but for all the people that, okay, here's all the destruction that was coming. That's chapters 1 through 7, right? And it's here's the judgment that's going to happen. Now, chapter 8 begins, here's why. And it's Ezekiel's pointing out that, the coming captivity, the coming conquering, it's not some political regime. It's not just some militaristic thing. It is, unfortunately, of the Lord. And it's because of the sinful ways that the Israelites are living. That they have, through all the blessings they've received and protection that they've received and saving that they've received from God, they now, in response, are turning back to these pagan practices. Listen to them. One thing I find interesting is, as we look at how the Spirit is showing Ezekiel one thing after another, as the Israelites are living in this sinful manner, doing these detestable practices, we can relate it to our lives. That as we begin to peel away our sin, and we say, all right, I'm taking that off, and I'm putting on righteousness. It's like peeling layers of an onion, right? We discover more and more, and eventually, we get down to the root of the problem, right? Because really, a lot of times when someone is dealing with a sin in their life, the first one that they see is just a fruit. It's a result, right? In most situations, you get down to really it's a heart problem, or it's not trusting the Lord. It's fear of the Lord in a wrong way, or it's fear of man, or it's idolizing the wrong thing, not idolizing God, essentially, right? Putting other things before ourselves. So that is kind of what we can take out of this for our own lives. That as we begin to peel back one thing after another, we'll see more and more. And I don't share this to make us be a downer or anything, but it's just a reminder that following Christ, it's a tough road. It's a wonderful road to be on, and it will call a lot. It will expect a lot out of us, but it is a righteous path. It is one that, as you are journeying on it, you will see more and more blessings. You will see more and more of God's beauty, I believe. So friends, I thank you. I thank you for your day, and I pray that you receive this message well. Let's go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Amen.